Welcome to the Grief Files podcast. I'm your host, Roxy Chalice. I'm very excited about my guests here today. I have Nancy and Byron, and we're going to talk about a really special theme today in this episode about some of the gifts that come in grief and death and loss, and some of the life that can occur after loss. So thank you both for being here today.
Sure.
So I'd like to start. The two of you have a very special story of how you met, and I would love to have you give us that story. You can co-tell that story and just break it down. But before we get into that, because it's great, and I can't wait to hear you share it, I want to start just with the fact that your meeting obviously occurred around the experience of grief that you each had separately had. And one of the things that we focus on in this podcast is talking about grief as it's experienced on that very personal and immediate level. A lot of times when we talk about death and loss and grief, we talk about it from that 30,000-foot view, and that puts distance there. And we want to remove that distance in this conversation and talk about what it really feels like to be in it. And so to that end, I'd love if each of you might share a moment in your grief experience. Just give us a little snapshot, just in that most intimate kind of personal way of what it felt like to be in the grieving place. And it can be the smallest kind of moment of just sharing a little bit about what it felt like personally for you as an individual to be in a state of loss.
Well, I guess I could start. Well, I lost my wife last December, and she'd been sick for a while. And when she finally came home from the skilled nursing center, I knew it was probably going to be close, and hospice kind of walked me through it.
Okay.
But the next day, I had one of those moments where, now what, came up. Okay, I mean, I had worked years to build us a retirement and get us ready to roll and that sort of thing, and planning on some retirement stuff.
Yeah.
And now I was suddenly alone. It was difficult. I didn't know what to do. I did some calling around and looked at some of these other places that have various little grief classes and what have you. And everybody was down the road a ways. So I was getting by. I have a daughter that lives at the house with me, so I wasn't completely alone, but she works, so I was alone enough.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine invited me to this group that we're in now. And I went, and it was okay. I was a little overwhelmed with some of the other people had gone through, and I realized that it was all about perspective, and that everybody has their own journey, and there really was no way for me to gauge or judge what somebody else's journey was, but I could deal with my own. So I thought, well, I'll just do the best I can do.
Yeah.
And anyway, the group they like to do a little social thing every month. And then it was in February that they decided to have a Valentine's dinner for everybody.
Okay.
I mean, everybody there, we're all alone. And then all of a sudden, we had a group there. I was still hurting pretty bad. I was going through some things that were really hard on me.
Yeah.
And I sat down at an empty chair at this table where we were all at, and she was across the way. Well,
your future was looking at you.
I absolutely unloaded on her. I told her everything that had been going through my mind, and she just sat there and listened to me and let me talk. And I remember in my mind thinking, well, Jesus, she's listening to me. How can that be? and it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah.
She was always always looked forward to the Monday evening group sessions because she would be there,
Yeah.
and we would stand outside after the meeting and talk, and we literally talked for hours and hours. I mean, sometimes when the class was over, what, 7:30 or 8 o'clock, something like, we'd be standing out there in front of this place till 10 o'clock talking. It went on and on for a while. Then we had a couple little dinners, and we seemed like we were very similar in a lot of ways, and so it just kind of grew from there. And now that I've kind of said my stuff, um, usually just have to wind her up and turn her loose, and she'll talk.
Well, really, I can't wait to hear Nancy's perspective on this. But before we pivot over to that, Byron, I want to ask you a question. I want to dig a little bit deeper. So you were saying you were just kind of unloaded on Nancy. Here's where I'm at. Here's what's going on. What was going on? Do you remember kind of what was in your mind? Like, what did it feel like in your body? And what was the thought track that was kind of
Oh my
playing
God,
in your head?
I felt all of this anger.
Yeah.
I felt all this pain and regret and guilt, and maybe I hadn't done enough things, and angry. But why did she leave me?
Yeah.
It's just kind of a primal thing that you had to kind of got through. And I was just, like I said, I was just unloading on her, or she'd been down the road a little bit further. She knew exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And
yeah, this wasn't part of your plan, losing your wife,
no.
especially when you'd been gearing up for this season of retirement to share with her. And
Yeah, I
have
mean,
that
I had my last job I'd been at over 20 years, and I'd retired. And but that was about the time that Roxanne began to really kind of get sick. And so I ended up sticking around the house, and we stuck around the house, and I would just puttered around the house while she was feeling bad and getting worse, and I couldn't get her to go to the doctor, and I was getting kind of frustrated and angry about that. And I just didn't understand. I mean, why was this happening to me?
Yeah.
I mean, we'd done everything right. We'd done all the things we're supposed to do, and
Yeah.
why couldn't we have that goal I'd been working so much for?
Yeah.
And anyway, like I said, I was spilling my guts out to Nancy here, and she was just kind of sitting there taking it in. And then later on, she pretty much said, well, she had pretty much the same issues. So we talked about various things, and interests and other things, and it just seemed like a very well set up date. if that makes any sense.
It wasn't a date.
Well, it's just all of a sudden there was somebody there who had the same interests, the same experiences, the same problems, everything.
Yeah.
And it was I'd had the advantage. I'd worked out here at American Airlines for 20 years, and that's all guys. And so I was constantly seeing guys that had gone through the same thing I was going through. They'd split up, or wives had left, or they had died, or whatever. And I saw so many of the mistakes so many of these guys made that I was kind of aware of some of the issues that can happen.
Yeah.
And then I had a really good friend of mine tell me, he says, don't get crazy now. I don't. He'd watched his father go through some stuff.
Okay.
And he says his father was very vibrant and healthy and everything. Then his mom had died. And he hooked up with this gal, and pretty soon her problems were his problems. And it just got weighted down with that. And so that was always in the forefront of my mind about, well, do you move on by yourself, or do you move on and try to find somebody?
Yeah.
And this was never a journey to find somebody.
No.
It
No.
just kind of materialized.
Happened.
And I I made a list.
Yeah. Did you?
I made a list. I mean, I want
It's
somebody.
little boxes.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I didn't want to make the mistakes I'd seen other guys make.
Sure. Yeah.
I didn't want to find a lady who had financial issues. I didn't want to find a lady who had family drama. Somebody hopefully that was relatively decent health.
Yeah.
And I'm going, well, that's kind of a shopping list. That's pretty mercenary of me. But as it turned out, it was something to think about.
Yeah.
Before you went into anything, before you went into any kind of relationship. I mean, I had gone through 52 years married,
Wow.
and the last probably 15 of it, she could barely walk and
Mm.
had absolutely no interest in anything at all. And it was like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
you know what?
You were running at a deficit. You'd already been through more than a decade of loss of life and hope and engagement and that kind of vivaciousness that we hope for ourselves. So it makes sense, even though you said your wife's name was Roxanne, was your ex-wife's
Yes.
name? Yeah. Yeah. So, she, even prior to her passing, you'd lost her in a
Pretty
kind
much.
of way.
Pretty much. She had been, she'd been failing for some time.
Sure.
Things got worse, and she'd actually quit driving probably 15 years before she passed.
Sure.
And so that created issues. I mean, if she needed to go anywhere, I had to take her, and which is not a problem, but I was still working.
Yeah.
But right before I retired, the company had gave everybody in the base positive space tickets to anywhere they fly in the world. So all we had to do is make reservations and get on an airplane. We could go anywhere we wanted.
Wow.
Well, all of a sudden those weren't. I mean, what am I going to do? Go by myself?
Sure. Yeah.
So I mean, it was just stuff like that. It just, you hate to see disappointed, but I was.
Of course.
And I guess that's probably part of the grieving process is the
Yeah.
disappointment and the grief and the anger and the
Guilt.
and the guilt. Oh my God, the guilt.
Oh gosh.
And
Because
then-
we say we're not supposed to feel this way. We're supposed to be
right.
We're supposed to be steady on. We're supposed to just be fully in acceptance of whatever life deals us. But there's a lot of other ways that we feel when our relationships go off track.
I mean, yeah, I never really understood the guilt and my God, how can you feel guilty or angry about a spouse that's been sick and is dying? What is wrong with me? Why would I feel that way?
Right.
And some of the grief counseling stuff really did help me kind of sort some of that out.
Yeah.
So I wasn't so angry and so sad and so guilty and
Sure.
Well, some of the things we talked about.
oh yeah. And yeah, well, Nancy had already been down a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
She's well, yeah, I guess I did help her a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And well,
Yeah.
well, she can tell you what she went through.
Yeah.
You can kind of see from there. We've got a cat here that used to be.
She doesn't have a brain.
Anyway,
I can tell already how witty you are, Nancy. Let's hear from you. Let's hear your perspective on this. First of all, a moment in the grief that brought you into this grief group where you happened to unexpectedly come across Byron. And then tell us your side of the story of what this was like to meet this other.
Yeah. I lost my husband in November of 21 on my daughter's birthday, which is just so lovely because now it's ruined for her. She thinks of her birthday as the day of death,
Yeah.
and she was very close to her father. So I was going on starting my 4th year of being alone. Initially, I felt completely at sea. I had no idea why I was the one, because everybody in the family, and this has kind of become a joke, but everyone in the family assumed I would be the one that would die first. And, because nothing ever happened to Rick, he was always healthy and strong and everything. And I had 2 knees replaced and foot issues and stuff. Sorry about that. But yeah, they always assumed I would go first. And they said it many times to me about why was it him and not me? And I was like, well, thanks a lot, but but I'm here. And they seemed a little disappointed at times,
Yeah.
But yeah, so
yours broke the script in a different kind of way. Maybe not a script that you would have chosen for yourself, but
no. And so I spent probably the first 6 months just trying to figure out what in the heck am I supposed to do? He had been my rock. He'd always been there for me. He nursed me through every surgery I went through, and I've been through a bunch. And I just didn't know what to do. So I met a friend at the Broken Arrow Senior Center, and she and I became really very, very close. And she had been a widow for 13 years.
Oh, wow.
So she was really experienced on how to be strong and be on your own. And she helped me through a lot of it. But I still found myself always slipping back into this dark hole and being alone. I hate being alone and being left behind. It's a different version of FOMO,
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And so, so she drugged me screaming and kicking to this Valentine's Day dinner. And we got there early.
Did
She
you know
knew everyone? I didn't know anybody. So I'm just sitting at the table facing kind of the door, and this guy walks in and he goes over to his friend and they're talking, and he kept looking over at me. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. Nobody ever looks at me. And he did. And he then started talking to me, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. I don't normally have guys talk to me. And so he sat down across from me, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I have so much in common with him. And I'm just kind of ticking off all the things that I have in common with him. And this is really unusual because he likes to travel. Oh my gosh, he worked for American. Maybe I could travel with him. He's into photography. I had been huge into photography when I lived in California. But when I moved to Oklahoma, that all quit. And I understood what he was talking about. What do I do now? Because I was still going on 4 years wondering, what do I do now? Am I going to be alone and have to find some way to stick my thumb out and hitchhike to travel, or what am I going to do? I was getting bored at home, and I couldn't stand to stay at home. The walls would start screaming at me if I was alone for too long. And so I'd spend all my time at the senior center. But again, you can be alone in a crowd.
Yes,
and that's the way it felt most of the time.
Yeah.
And so the next week, I went to the meeting, and he made a statement about the thing that he missed the most was not getting hugged. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been 4 years since I've been hugged. Actually, longer than that, because my husband was sick.
Yeah.
And so I said, yeah. And so after the meeting, we decided to be hug buddies.
Oh.
And we would just give each other a hug, very platonic hugs. Okay.
Yeah.
But it really, it did something to me, because for the first time since I'd lost my husband, I felt safe when he hugged me.
Oh, yeah.
And that was huge. That was huge. And then I thought, well, I've been down the road that he's traveling on right now. as a friend, maybe I can help him. Maybe there's things that I've experienced that would help him.
Yes.
So I went into this just wanting to help him
Yeah.
and help him get through this, because I could feel waves of pain coming off of him.
Yeah.
And as we talked, it kind of settled around a lot of guilt. And I had a lot of guilt. And he helped me through some of my guilt. And I think I helped him with some of his.
Yeah.
And then I asked him if he wanted to go see Superman with me, because I'm not going to go to the movies by myself.
Sure.
I did that once, and it was really ugly, because I
Yeah.
sat and cried, and the date couple that was next to me had to give me Kleenex. It was bad. Terrible. So I'm not doing that. So I invited him, and he said, yeah, what time? And I said, well, 25 minutes. And he goes, I'll be there.
Oh, yes.
So I paid for him to go.
You employed that tactic that, you do it real quick before either one of you can back out and decide you're not brave anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then afterwards, he invited me to dinner. And so we went from the theater to dinner. That was what, 3 hours, 3.5 hours, something like that. We sat there and talked. And then he asked if he could kiss me, and the rest is history.
Oh, I love this story so much. Okay, I want to bring up something potentially difficult, but something that I think is going to resonate for a lot of people when they hear your story. Did either of you ever receive the accusation or feel the worry internally of, am I moving on too quickly? That idea, that fear about replacing a lost spouse. Did anyone ever bring that up? Was that ever brought into the mix?
I never looked at the relationship that he and I had as a replacement.
Yes.
This is a new beginning for us both.
Mm-hmm.
And I went into this relationship, and I told Byron, I said, look, for the rest of our lives, if this lasts that long, which I certainly hope so, since he gave me a big rock.
Oh, yeah.
But I told him, I said, there's always going to be 4 of us in this relationship.
Yes.
I said, because I had 45 years with my husband. I have 2 kids by him. And they honor him, and they honor me by accepting that Byron is now a part of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful to my kids that they have accepted him.
Absolutely.
Because they didn't have to.
Right.
They could have taken the other route.
Sure.
But I said, Roxanne's always going to be a part of Byron's life. And I have to accept Roxanne just as he has to accept Rick.
Yes.
Because I'm not going to forget about the 45 years.
No.
He's not going to forget about the 52 years he had.
Yeah.
So it's a melding of all of the things that we've gone through. And we've talked about, well, what if we had met a lot earlier in our lives? Would we have the same thing? And I don't think either one of us would think that we would, because we are who we are because of everything that we've gone through. That's
right. I love the way that you're speaking to this, Nancy, and I love that you said it's not a replacement.
Oh gosh, no.
We are where we are because of everything we've come through, because I think that is absolutely true. But I think one of the things that happens for us in the aftermath of loss, and you've both spoken to this, that emptiness that we feel when someone so core leaves our lives, and that longing to reattach and be engaged in our lives in deep and meaningful and intimate relationships once we've lost someone with whom we shared so much intimacy. And I think one of the things that makes grief so painful, and the reason people feel so stuck in it, because it really exacerbates a sense of aloneness a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I think part of it is that we're afraid sometimes to love again. There's a question of whether we're allowed to love again. I know when my daughter passed away in 2016, and then about a year later, I was pregnant with my son, and I was so afraid that people were going to think that my son was a replacement for my daughter. you know?
Mhm.
But of course, that's not the way love works. It's not a zero-sum game any more than it would be if, your child lived and you had another child, you brought somebody else in that you love in your life. We keep adding, right? We keep adding to the love in our lives. And one of the ways that I most appreciate to think about grief is that it is love, not diminished, just altered, right?
Yeah.
And that's why it's so intense. As intense as you loved, that's how intense you grieve, because it's just love in another form, you know? Um,
One of the things that I discovered, the day before my husband passed, the doctors pulled me out into the hall, which I got very angry about this because I knew my husband could hear what they were saying to me.
Yeah.
And they told me that he would be dead within 24 hours,
wow.
just point blank. I, at that point, did not know that he was dying.
Wow.
They hadn't shared that with me. And apparently they had known it since the day we walked into the hospital 2.5 weeks before.
Oh, wow.
And so it was like a stab to the heart.
Yeah.
And ever since that day, I've had a weird heartbeat.
Hmm.
And we were talking about it in the grief group one day, and I was like, oh my gosh, are you telling me it's true that you can have a broken heart? And one of the guys in it said, yeah, absolutely. That your heartbeat can permanently change because of that.
Hmm.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, I have a broken heart. I didn't,
Yeah.
yeah, he broke my heart when he died.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things about a very wise therapist told me many years ago. She said, we have anger all wrong. All anger is a signal to us. And what the signal message is that this is not okay. That's all it is. We get scared about anger because anger feels like aggression and anger feels like it has an object. But the truth is, when we feel angry, it's just saying, this isn't okay, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then the heartbreak stems from that, right? The heartbreak
Yeah.
stems from this not okay thing happened to me.
But I discovered that, and I know a lot of people already know this, but I didn't. The heart is a very elastic organ. And you love somebody and that fills up your heart at that moment. And then you lose them, that love didn't go away.
That's
But
right.
when I met Byron, it expanded out to encompass him too. So
Yeah,
it just keeps growing. The
that's
more
right.
people that we love in our life, the bigger our heart gets.
That's right.
And this guy's
That's right.
got a huge heart.
Oh, I love that. You both are so grief wise. If there was something you wanted to share, because I do think there's so much misunderstanding about grief for people who are experiencing it for the first time, or for people who are trying to be loving support systems for someone going through grief. There's just so much that we don't know or understand. If there was something that you wanted to convey to be understood about grief, what might that be?
Well, the whole thing of somebody telling you, just call me if you need something,
Yeah.
or how are you doing? Are you all right? It's almost a slap for somebody to say that to you.
Yeah.
What you need is somebody that'll let you vent
Yeah.
and understand that they don't really need to pass judgment. They don't have to make a decision. They just have to be a sounding board.
Mhm.
And if they could just do that to help somebody out,
Yeah.
and that's all. That's really about it. It's something you have to go through. You can't. There are no shortcuts.
No.
I thought, well, I'd go to a couple of these meetings. I'd be okay. Move on.
Yeah.
It just got worse.
Yeah.
And then there's a lady in the group that's had lost her husband and then lost her son not shortly thereafter.
Mm.
And that poor woman is never going to be right, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I hear that story and I just go, wow, maybe I don't know what grief is.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say I'm over it by any stretch. I mean, one fellow in the group told us, he says that grief, when that loved one dies, he says the first thing that happens is it's right up in your face. And he says, as time goes on, it begins to kind of it'll always be there, but it will tend to kind of ease away.
Mm.
And that's kind of what I've done.
And it moves at a different rate for each person.
Exactly.
Yes.
Perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's been less than a year for Byron, but he put in a lot of work between what he was doing in grief group, all of his books that he read about grief, all of the podcasts that he watched about grief, all of that stuff. He put in a ton of work, much more than I ever did in my first year.
Yeah.
I wish I had done more in my first year.
Mm.
Because I'm still going through grief, and there are moments that I still have, and it'll be, a couple of weeks, it'll be 4 years.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's crazy that it's taking me this long. But it's everybody's at their own speed, and you just have to accept that. I think the one thing that really upset me, perhaps the most, and it was innocent on the part of so many people, because people make assumptions that everybody is highly religious. And I'm not. I'm spiritual, but I'm not highly religious.
Yeah.
And it really made me angry when people would say, well, he's in a better place now. I'm like, what the heck? The better place was with me, because I was taking care of him. I made the dinners. I kept the house. I gave him kids. I did all the things for him. Yeah. So how could he be in a better place than that? His kids needed him. His grandkids need him. Yeah. And that just made me so angry. And I had to get kind of past that anger at some point.
Yeah.
And I think you had that same reaction.
Yeah. I mean, it's a momentary relief on the grief of, oh, well, she's in heaven and everything's going to be all right. And she's looking down on me and everything's fine. But I don't believe that. And that's hard for some people to understand. But I don't even really know how to say it, but that's how some people get through it. But that's fine for them.
But it doesn't work.
But it doesn't work for me.
For me.
Yeah. I'm curious for each of you, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because you are certainly not alone in that experience of feeling like that narrative. Yeah, you're not alone in that at all. But I'm curious for each of you, and I think this might be a highly personalized thing, but do you have a sense of what your heart most wants to hear in response to your loss, which your loss stays alive, right? I mean, it'll be 10 years this year for my daughter. You learn how to live with it more. I had a therapist tell me once that wholeness is like an island, and the goal is to visit more and more often and stay a little longer each time. And I think you could almost think about your kind of abject grief in the reverse, right? It's an island. The goal is to visit with less frequency and stay less long each time in that agonized grief place, but you're going to go there for the rest of your life. And that's part of it. So, we carry our grief. In fact, sometimes I feel like we can almost read it on each other in a way. I almost feel like if you're someone who's been there in that, you can almost sense it when you meet another person that they've got that too. There's some kind of marker on us maybe. And, but I'm curious if you each have a sense, rather than saying, oh, they're in a better place, it's hurtful and angering and just doesn't connect. Is there something that you would love to hear? I know for myself with my daughter, people were very afraid to remind me of her passing. And so, in fact, what I started to notice is that when friends and family would come around, they were getting babysitters and they were leaving their kids because they thought if kids came around,
Yeah.
make me feel
I
like
can
a
see
sense
that.
of FOMO or like a, I mean, they were doing their best, right? They thought we cannot bring our children around. Her child's not there.
I can see that.
And the
Yeah.
other thing is people would not want to say her name. And, my answer to that question, what I wanted to hear is say her name. Simone. I wanted to hear her name on the lips of other people because it's bringing her into the space. It's keeping her here with us. You can't remind me of my daughter's death because I never forget, even for an instant, I never forget. And I think that that is true for those of us who are grieving. So for me, tell me your Simone stories, please.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Find reasons to bring her name in, even if you have to reach for it, please bring her into this space with us. That feels so loving to me. I feel so held. And I had this experience maybe 6 months after my daughter passed away. And my husband at the time, we were going to a retreat to try to help us because we were just ghosts, right? We just had not managed to be alive or be connected in any kind of way after she passed away. And I'm early pregnant with my son. And we board this flight. And it was one of these moments where I'm seated on the flight and, I feel like kind of a jerk for this, but as I'm boarding, I'm motion sick already. I'm morning sick already. And I get seated next to this man. He's a big guy, right? And those seats are so small. So he's a big guy, but he'd been heavily smoking, right? So there's this strong smoke smell. And I've always been a smoker too. Like it wasn't, but I didn't feel well and I was pregnant, right? And I'm boarding this flight and it's a 3-hour flight and this is my seatmate. And in my mind, I'm thinking, why, Then I start to notice this poor guy, he is fidgeting like crazy. And just a few minutes after takeoff, he looks at me and he goes, gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for how I'm being here. And I said, it's okay. And then I kind of noticed something and he goes, I just found out that my wife died. She fell asleep in her bed at home and I'm trying to get there before the kids get home from school.
Oh my gosh.
It had just
wow.
And all of a sudden, I had this opportunity, right? Because I know this place. I'm still in that place myself. I'm a few months ahead of him, right? And instinct kind of took over. I reached over, I took his hand in my hand and I said, what's her name? And he said her name and I could see the relief immediately. He needed to say her name. And then I said, tell me her story. We got 3 hours on this flight. Tell me your story.
Yeah.
And he just talked and told me. And I loved this woman by the end of this flight. I loved this woman. And he stopped with the shaking and he calmed down and we parted ways at the end of that flight. I gave him a big hug. And, it was one of those moments, like one of those love in action moments. I never would have known that was the thing to do. Had I not been through that experience myself, I probably would have done what most people did to me when they found out. When I flew, we had a funeral for my daughter back at where I was from with family there. And I'm holding her ashes against my chest, right? I'm flying and people were so uncomfortable, right? Like people, oh, I'm sorry. And they look away, right?
Mm.
And that's probably what I would have done too. But having had the experience, I knew I needed to take this man's hand and I needed to say her name. So when he told me her name, and I don't remember anymore what it was, but I would repeat her name back. I would say, did she always love that? Did she, this kind of thing. And the more times I said her name, the more he seemed to stop shaking. And because we call the memory and the presence of that person into the room when we speak their name. There's so much power in that,
Yeah.
You know why that helped you? It's because you had a purpose.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I talked to Byron about early on, that the way to get through the day is find a purpose for each and every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I got through the days.
Mm-hmm.
I decided I've always been a fluffy person. And so I decided very early on, well, I've lost, 10 pounds because I didn't feel like eating after he died. And so I went and I started losing weight on purpose. And so that became my daily purpose is I had to log my food. I had to weigh myself. I had to do all these things. And I've now lost about 70 pounds. So thank God for that. Right?
Congratulations.
But I had to have some sort of a purpose,
Yeah.
some reason to get up. And somebody told me early on, they said, well, if you need something to do to get through the day, make your bed. That way you have accomplished something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It doesn't matter how small, how insignificant it is. You got to do something.
Yeah.
And I did that. I fed the cat. Such a shiz. But yeah, that really helped me.
Yeah.
That really helped me a lot.
Yeah.
And so I always pray every night to myself. And I don't know if it goes to God or not, because I'm not sure I totally believe, but I know I hear it.
Yeah.
And so in many ways, I'm speaking to myself. And every night I always include in that, help me find a purpose and meaning to each and every day. And so if my purpose is being accomplished in any way, then I've been successful in that day.
I love that.
But
I love that. So I've given you a moment to think on it. Did you come up with something that your heart wants to hear in the grief that you will carry to the end of your days?
Well, the purpose is a big deal because at least you have some direction. I don't know that I've found the stuff that I need. I know that I don't worry about Roxanne anymore. That was a tremendous load off of me.
Sure.
And yeah, I do like to hear her voice. All I had remembered was the bad things.
yeah.
And then the group had a deal one night that bring a photo of your lost one.
Yeah.
So I've been photographing for years, and Roxanne hated to have her picture taken, but I did manage to go through quite a few images, and I came up with probably 20 or 30 that they were pretty good. And as I was looking through them, I began to realize actually the times weren't all bad.
Yeah.
We had some really good times.
Yeah.
And
She was beautiful too.
they just got kind of rough in the end.
Yeah.
And that probably helped me more than anything.
Yeah.
It's just looking at these old photos of her and remembering that there was some good stuff.
Yeah.
So,
She makes me look like a troll.
Oh, wow. Well, that's quite an accomplishment,
she
Nancy.
was
I have to say.
she was a beautiful lady. She was.
Wow.
So
But I love that. I love that idea of capturing, finding what was good in it and remembering. You're right. That is true. It's easy to lose that perspective.
yeah.
A lot of kinds of loss, not even just bereavement. My 8-year-old son is going through a really, really hard time. And there have been some weeks when I think, has it ever been good? Has it ever been good? And the answer is yes, abundantly and many times over good. But sometimes in my grief about what's happening for us, it feels lost. And same kind of thing. These iPhones now, I open up my photo gallery. I start scrolling back through the years. I see his sweet face laughing, these funny little things he says on these video clips. And then it reminds me of that line from a John Prine song about the gold that's in me and the gold that's in you too, and the fact that that's always in there. Those good things, those continue, and if we can anchor to that, it does a lot to help us go on. Yeah.
Having people say something, though, that's not hurtful, that's really difficult.
Yes.
I mean, I can't really off the top of my head think of anything that really helped, other than someone giving me a hug and saying, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
It'll eventually be okay. And it is getting better. It is definitely getting better. And as Byron said, it was here, and I'm out probably here where he's still, a little closer. And I think the hardest part is being strong for other members of the family, for my kids.
Yeah.
My son he was living in Tennessee. He's now, as of probably today, in Florida. They moved from Jackson, Tennessee to Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, couldn't you get a more original name? But anyway, it was incredibly difficult when I would talk to him, because he would sometimes start sobbing on the phone, and I can't hug him and I can't do anything. I'm, 7 hours away from him. There's not much I can do.
Yeah.
Or my daughter, she would call me up sometimes from her work, and she'd say, I was driving to work, and there was a song that came on, and it sounded like Dad talking to me. And it's like, what can I do? There's nothing I can do to help her pain be less. And yet her pain is my pain still.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I think that it's a muscle that we build, and there's such strength. It's such a profound kind of love to be with people we love who are in pain without fixing it, because let's be honest, most of the time you can't fix it. But that reminds me of something you said, Byron, about, don't try to tell me something. Don't try to say, what can I do? Just show up and create some space for me to be as I am. But I think it's really hard for us. I think it's something to aspire and work toward. It's a muscle to build, is to build our capacity to be alongside another human being who is in pain and not flinch.
Yeah.
One thing I found, after Rick died, a number of people gave me gift cards to restaurants. And I'm like, why would you give that to a widow who's going to have to go to that restaurant and sit there by herself and have a meal? No. I would rather somebody, give me, a raw chicken that I have to cook, or something like that. Because, and I did it one time. I went to Chili's, and they seated me in a back corner next to the kitchen. And I brought a book with me, because I was like, what am I going to do just sitting here staring at the wall? And then they forgot about me.
Oh, no.
I'll never go back to Chili's. They forgot about me, and it was 10 o'clock, and the manager walked by, and he's like, have you had, how did you like your meal? And I said, I wouldn't know. I ordered it 3 hours ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was very angry at the time. And
of course,
it was like maybe a month and a half after he had passed, and I was like, oh, come on, people.
Yeah.
I'm a poor old lady here. Kind to me, but oh no, they just would zip on by. They come out of the kitchen, zip on by with other people's food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, being in a raw grief state, it makes you realize how cruel and fast-paced the world can be. And I do think one of the gifts of grief and loss is it imbues more compassion. I remember trying to drive shortly after my daughter had passed away, and I would be at a light in like just laps, I guess. I would be behind the wheel, and I would just drift off mentally and not know where I was. And then I would come to, because there were horns blaring, right? And people would go flying around the car, screaming out the window, giving me the bird. And, and I'm thinking, my daughter passed away 4 days ago. I don't even know where I am right now.
I don't need the bird to help me.
And that's, but I think that as we move in the world, it's a good thing to try to remember to call our minds to, is that one thing we know for sure, we know that the world is full of people trying to get through their day in this raw and unbearable place of grief.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you won't know who they are. You won't know who they are. So you got to just try to assume the kindest and most gentle treatment you can, because you have no idea what version of hell that person might be living in that very moment, you know?
You never know what someone else is going through. You
No.
never really know.
No.
I have to tell you a little brief story. You may not like it, but I like it. When my mother died in 2005, my daughter and I got on a plane to fly to California to take care of everything.
Sure.
That day we got on the plane. Wow. That I found out. And horrible thunderstorms, these huge columns of thunderheads were rising up into the heavens, and it was late afternoon, evening, and this golden pink light was shining on all of them. And it was so bad that the pilot took off autopilot or whatever they do. I don't know what they do up there. It's magic up there.
Yeah. But, agreed.
But this pilot was flying like he would bank till we were like on our sides. And he would go around one column and up and over another one and down and around. And we were just making our way through all these enormous, incredibly impressive clouds. And I was sitting by the window because I was like, I got to see this. And my daughter was in the middle, and there was some man that was on the other side of her. Yeah. And he was clutching the chair as hard as he could, and my daughter was clinging to me, and she was in her 20s at that point. She's clinging to me, and she's like, Mom, we're going to die. And I turned to her and I said, Kelly, I said, none of us are going to die today. I said, God took one of us already. He's not going to take the rest. And the man looked over at me and he said, oh, I can breathe now.
Oh.
And I thought, sometimes it's the little things that you say completely in innocence that make all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I will never forget that flight because it was the most exciting, impressive, gorgeous thing that the world could have thrown in my face.
Yeah.
And it was on the day my mother died.
Wow. I love your attitude. Byron, you're a lucky man. Seriously, it's just such a beautiful take. You extract something so real and so honest and so beautiful from what life has dished. And I feel this is so true from both of you. And I just thank you for your profound humanity and just the way that you show up as you are and doing this work of being human. It's not easy. And I find you both to be an inspiration about the good things that can come through these transitions when we stay in, and
you have to be open. You have to be open. Like I said, it's a new beginning. Once that person has passed, life will never, ever, ever be the same.
No.
It'll never be the same. And there's all kinds of challenges that you don't expect and that you have to face, and you have to figure them out. That's Byron's favorite thing to say. We'll figure it out.
There you go.
And we do one step at a time.
That's right.
But it's a new beginning. And so you have to go, okay, I'm not dead. I'm still here. And each and every moment that we are here is a gift.
Yeah. It's
a gift from God. It's a gift from the heavens. It's a gift from whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a gift, and you don't want to waste a moment of it. And yes, you're grieving and you still feel pain. We almost daily encounter something that makes us sad, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And you want to still move on, move forward. The past is the past. You can never, ever change the past.
No.
It's there, and you cherish the good times that you had, and you try to understand the bad times that you had and grow from them and still learn and move forward and think of new things that we're going to do.
That's right.
We've got some pretty exciting stuff that we're looking at doing.
I love this. And I think that's a beautiful note for us to end on today. I love that so much. It's an exercise of the imagination, isn't it?
Yeah.
What are the new things? We got to build it. We got to dream it and we have to build it. And that's
Not
exactly
live in hate. Not live in hate.
no.
No.
Thank you both so much. I've loved this conversation. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having us.